Good morning. Good morning. I'm Tony Smith, president of Pinal Partnership. If everybody would get seated, we have a really interesting panel this morning. They've been doing a tremendous amount of work at the state legislature on our behalf. And so we're going to do some basic introductions, and then we're going to get right into the panels and the panelist questions. But before we get started, I want to thank our new and renewing members. New, we have corporate partner, AES Corporation, individual, Brian Bassa and Thomas Couch. A nonprofit, we've got the Saddlebrook Public Affairs Commission. Renewals, thank you for renewing. Associate partner, CivTech, Dibble Corporation, Hunter Contracting, Stantec, Wilson and Company. In the individual category, we got Kathy Alleman, J.E. Fuller, James Frazee, Rebecca Roberts. And the nonprofit, we've got Maricopa EDA, United Way, and We Serve. I want to thank our breakfast sponsor, Central Arizona College. It is a great facility, and we enjoy always coming back here. We will not have a breakfast in July. Our next breakfast will be in August. But I hope you have a safe and fun summer. I know I sure will. At this point, I want to recognize what we have on your tables is the flyers regarding the Pinal County for new roads and freeways. As you most likely know, the Arizona Supreme Court approved and validated the plan for the transportation back in 2017. It was on the ballot, but it invalidated the tax or the revenue portion. Pinal Partnership, along Pinal County, Pinal Regional Transportation Authority, and others are rallying, and we're going to work hard to put that back on the ballot and then raise the money in order to win in November. So this is important in order to keep economic development driving for our county and our communities. And I hope you'll join us with this. There's an opportunity if you or your corporation or your business wants to donate, there's an opportunity, and Pinal Partnership is acting as a pass-through. We're collecting the monies, and then we will eventually turn them over to a political action committee. But thank you all for your support in that initiative, and we're going to work hard in order to be successful in November. At this time, you have the bios on your tables, but we want to welcome our panelists, and I'll read them off. Representative David Cook from District 8. Please come forward and take your place, David. Representative Teresa Martinez, District 11. And driving just in time, Neal Carter, Representative Neal Carter, District 8. You might want to check to see if he's got any bacon with him or not. Okay. And then Senator T.J. Shope of District 8. I'm going to be the moderator. Jordan Rose was not able to make it, so I'm going to ask the questions, and I've got some softballs, but we're going to go to knuckleballs and fastballs later on. So just before we get into it, I've got a request from Supervisor Steve Miller to publicly address these fine representatives of ours. So at this time, Steve, if you'll come to the microphone and share the microphone. No, he'll just come up here and I'll let him in here.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd be remiss in not telling you all how hard these people have worked for Pinal County. They have done a fantastic job this year. I would tell you in the arena of transportation, Representative Cook, man, he's been on that 24 like a dog on a bone. So I'm just telling you, this has really been great. They've all been responsive to my emails and my texts. I'm sure they're tired of me. They want to get the budget done so that I will quit calling them. I'm sure of that. But thank you for all the work you guys have done. Thank you for continuing. I know we've got this water issue that's out there that's floating around. It seems to be trending towards some good things for Pinal County. Let's try and keep that in mind. We still have some challenges with some funding for medical services and stuff for the indigents. But you guys have been fantastic this year, and we really, really appreciate it. Oh yeah, and I-10. Of course, that was all out assault on that one. So, but thank you, everyone. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Indeed, we all add our thanks to that for what you're doing on behalf of Pinal County and our communities. So let's get started. First question is to Representative Martinez and Neal Carter. As freshman representatives, what did you do to get up to speed and be effective in this, your first legislative session? We'll start with you.
Me?
Yeah.
What did I do? So thank you for having me, and thank you to the Pinal County Board of Supervisors for selecting me greatly. Me and Neal. Neal and I are twins. We were both appointed the exact same day. So I do have a little bit more seniority because I was sworn in just a little bit earlier, but for the most part, we're twins. It's been an exciting, they basically just threw us in, right? They just said, here you go, that's how you learn how to swim. They just threw you in the water. And we doggy paddled, and we got some really great committees out of it. I ended up in natural resources, water, energy. I also got government and elections, military affairs, and public safety, which have been wonderful to work with. Water was very, very important to me because, as you all know, in Pinal County, we go thirsty first. We go thirsty first in the state. And so it's important that we have somebody fighting for Pinal County on that committee, which we do. I got 3 bills through the House, the Senate, and signed by the governor in my first session, so I was really excited about that.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, so thank you. I got 3 bills, and they're very simple bills, but they're going to help the cities. My most favorite bill, and I hate to say that, but my most favorite bill is the one that I did that the city of Maricopa, shout out to them, came to me and said, we really need this bill so that we can allow industry and development to come into the city and be able to do their petitions and do their general plan, and that got through, and that was wonderful. Most of my bills, if not all 3 of my bills, were unanimous, and so I got a lot of wide support. So I was very excited, and now we see how I do on the budget. So it's looking good for my request so far. So that's it. Yeah.
Representative Carter.
Thank you. Thanks to Pinal Partnership too. It's great to be here on this side of the table. I've been a member for years, but in my case, we were both appointed on October 27th. I was sworn in on November 5th, and what I didn't want to happen was to go down there and not be effective. So the first thing that I did was I arranged to meet with every county level elected official one-on-one in person in November and part of December. So I met with Supervisor Miller in his office, met with Supervisor Goodman in his home, with Surdy at his business. And of course, most of you know that District 8 encompasses a large part of Gila County too. So I went up to see Bradley Beauchamp at his office, the supervisors there, the assessor, I mean, any county level elected official. I wanted to know what they're working on, what's important to them, and how I could be of service to them, and of course give them my contacts. That was kind of the first thing. And the second part of being new, I think, is to understand the process down there as well. So I had arranged meetings with the director of ADOT as well as with the State Land Department, Lisa Adkins. Sat down in my office for over an hour. It was a great meeting. Met with Richard Stadniak, who runs the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, JLBC, just to understand the budget process and all that stuff, because you owe it really to the people, I think, to be as effective as you can for the interests of Pinal and Gila counties. So in my case, that was sort of the plan, because as you know, the session begins in January, so there's only about 6 weeks to get totally ramped up. But I think that Representative Martinez and I did okay with that, so glory be to God. Here we are.
Very good, Representative. Thank you very much. For the rest of the questions, I'm going to ask it, Senator Shope will be the next one, but if any of you want to weigh in on that particular question, just indicate and we'll pass the microphone down to you. But this one is from 2020 to 2030, Pinal County is predicted to lead the state by growing 32%, with many of our cities in the top 10 in growth. As the fastest growing county, Senator Shope, what is your personal long-term vision for Pinal County and our communities?
Well, first off, thank you for having me, Tony. I appreciate this. I look forward to this particular event every year. And I know that my new colleagues will as well, and I know Mr. Cook has enjoyed it also. But isn't this the same thing we've been hearing for like the last 20 years? I mean, you know, we have been among the fastest growing counties, if not the fastest growing county in the United States by percentage over the last 15, 20 years. We've had several cities in that top 10 category over the last 15, 20 years. I always tell the story of my senior year of high school as I'm graduating and we played golf at Johnson Ranch. There's only holes on the first and ninth hole in all of what is now Santan Valley. And look at it now. But look, I think the long-term vision is starting to actually be realized at this point in time. Rewind a few weeks ago when we were at Nikola Motors for their unveiling and getting to actually ride in that truck was awesome and fantastic. And I think that for many of us who had been working on things, I talked to my dad, who was mayor of Coolidge, whenever a lot of those agreements were made, back a decade ago, if not more. And obviously, Mayor Thompson was on the council at that time and had a hand in approving those, and then gets to see it come to fruition. You see Lucid Motors, obviously, in Casa Grande, and the feeling of pride that you get when you're actually on a road someplace and you see a Lucid in the wild, is driving next to you. That is the long-term vision of where we're going. Man, Pinal County, especially with LG moving into Queen Creek in the coming years, and other announcements that I know are going to be made, and I see Keith Watkins nodding his head because he knows, manufacturing, especially in the tech sector, is coming and has been in Pinal County. We're going to go ahead and continue to grow it going forward. And I think the best feeling of all, going back 10 years when I first got elected, was the idea that people could live, work, and play in the community that they reside in without having to drive to Phoenix for a high-paying job. And we are beginning to realize that, and I know it's going to even go bigger and better. And when ideally, when I talk to ADOT, especially about I-10 over the last couple of years, ideally, we begin to see a different traffic flow of people who reside in the Southeast Valley, perhaps, driving into Pinal County, instead of everybody from here driving up to Maricopa County. What that'll do for the local economy as far as sales tax revenue, things like that, is tremendous. And I don't even know that we're ready for the opportunity that beholds coming forward.
Panelists, did you want to weigh in on that particular question? If not, let's go to Representative Cook. Lawmakers must pass a state budget by July 1st. The predicted surplus is more than $5 billion. Some say the proposed budget doesn't do enough for education funding, and the governor has pledged $1 billion for water infrastructure. Plus, we're in a period of record-breaking inflation. What priorities do you want to see funded in the final budget, and how will it benefit Pinal County and our communities?
I got the glowing question.
Wait a minute.
I thought he said this was going to be like a softball question. Did you hear how they came down here, right? And Tony, thank you. I didn't want to say anything. TJ said everything good, but I would first like to publicly thank everyone in here in the new District 7. I love District 8. I love the people of it. And number one is I've got one of the best senator seat mates that anyone at that Capitol has today or has ever had. I truly believe that. And driving here, I just couldn't help when I told TJ, think about Frank. District 8 had 3 of the best representatives that we worked together, and you are seeing the results of Senator Representative Frank Pratt, God rest his soul, TJ and I, and that is a lot of what you see today is what we started 6 years ago. I just want to get that out there in the open. So thank you, TJ. It's an honor. So the budget. Well, don't believe everything you read in the paper, right? Okay, filter it through a little bit. We don't have a $5 billion surplus because we have plans for that, and some of it's there, some of it's not, some of it's created for a lot of different ways. So let's break it down. By July 1st, I said it last year, there are too many tools in the toolbox for us not to have the budget passed by July 1st. We're going to pass a budget. There's some members that are gone next week. We can't do it next week. We're still focused on 31, 16, and 1. We do have plans, I think leadership does, if we need a bipartisan budget, that can happen. But rest assured that that's gonna pass and everything will be okay. And you had like 100 different things on there. So the budget was one. Water? Okay, the water bill.
Yes, the water infrastructure.
Okay, so Pinal County Attorney and I, we wrote some comments in that and with some other organizations, every one of the things that I've been addressed. But what I say as a rancher is that we when we go out to do a job, we just don't get in the truck and drive out there to do it. We think about from the beginning, what kind of tools you need, what supplies you need, how you're going to do it, what it should look like at the end. That's how we do our business. And that's the way this water policy should be looked at. So when it first jumped off out there, and there's this grand idea for $1 billion, I've been saying we need $3 billion over 10 years. So governor's plan, $1 billion over 3 years, okay, that's close enough. So in the policy, and I want to give Kent Balkmer a shout out because we spent hours on the phone with your county's comments, Steve, right? And then our comments, all of those have been addressed. Here's what's pumped the brakes on it, I believe. The first thing that we should do before we jump off the cliff is we should make sure that our parachute is packed, right? I wouldn't jump off unless I would make sure that it was packed. So if we think about the RTA that went out, that got hung up in courts, caused all this problem, now got overturned, and where we're at today, let's put the water policy in the same situation. I've asked this question for 3 months. This water policy will be to deal with, you have 2 different kinds of water. You have in-state water, you have out-of-state water, okay? This new organization, whatever it turns out to be, it would deal with out-of-state water from another state or another country. The very first question we should ask ourselves is, do we have the constitutional ability as a state to enter into water agreements with other states and lease and purchases or with other countries? That is a constitutional legal question that must be answered. And for 3 months I've been asking that, and they were like, that's a great question. We think we do. And I said, there lies the problem. We can't think that we do. We need a legal basis and foundation that we do. So that's where I've been working at, is with some lawyers and stuff to find that out. Solver Project's been great. We believe, this is what I say, when I say we, me and my group, we believe the state of Arizona does have the constitutional authority to purchase and enter into water agreements with other states, but guess what? We would still have to have that ratified by the United States Senate. Because if you think about it, Arizona, we just can't go to Mexico and buy watermelons as a state and ship them into Arizona, right? We've got NAFTA. There's trade agreements, okay? There's interstate compact agreements. There's all this stuff that is to protect commerce and things. Water is the same way. So once we get that wrapped up, we are going to put, I think, 1/3 of the money in this budget for that so we can meet the money needs. But it is going to be a good policy when we're done, and that way we just don't jump up and hang ourselves up in court. Does that make sense to you all? Yes? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Representative. Did anybody else want to weigh in on that particular question?
The Kong is in the middle.
Okay. All right. The proposed budget provides funding for several Pinal County transportation projects, as mentioned. Are there any of these in Pinal County transportation projects contained in the latest draft of the budget that needs additional support or our efforts to ensure they make it into the final budget? And some of those ones, just so you all know what hard work these folks have been doing, they've got the I-10 widening project for $400 million, 347 widening for $19 million, the Riggs Road overpass for $11 million, State Route 24 extension to the north-south $15 million, US 60 pavement rehabilitation in the Pinal County area, north-south freeway tier 2 study $15 million. This is a tremendous boost to our transportation system. But the question is, are all these going to make it into the final budget? And let's go to Representative Martinez.
If they want my vote, they are.
Woo! Yeah!
Next.
Next. No, you've worked hard. You actually are working on additional ones that I don't even think I mentioned.
Yeah, there's another, I think, 66 million that the rural caucus has put together, and I've seen some stuff that Casa Grande jumps out, and they always remind me that Pinal County is going to be very, very, very looked after. I feel good about the budget. Now, maybe I'm a little naive, and probably TJ is gonna bring me down to reality, but I looked at that budget, and I didn't get everything I wanted this time. Next time, I know how to do it now. Yeah, I know how to do it now, and so there's going to be some things that we want. But with regards to transportation, I think we're in a very good spot.
I agree. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Transportation.
Go ahead, talk about I-10, TJ.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, I mean, I want to say thank you to everybody in this room that wrote letters, that called, that has even gone beyond that. So when we passed the bill for I-10 expansion just several weeks ago, that then wrote letters to Secretary Buttigieg and the Department of Transportation federally. Several of the folks, as I look around this room, either you personally did or the entities that you represent did. And so without your help, we wouldn't be where we are today. Representative Martinez is absolutely right. That took a long time, right? I mean, so some things you don't get the first time around. And that's some things you don't get unless you have money in the bank. That's probably the most important thing to recognize. And we do this year. Now, most of that is one time. So you don't get to hire a bunch of FTEs on one-time dollars. That would be asinine from a budgeting perspective. However, you do get to take care of needs that haven't maybe been taken care of in a long time. And a lot of those road projects you mentioned, I think of 238, that's one of Representative Martinez's number one issues over. And as we move into a new legislative district, District 16, you know, I've gone into some of these budget meetings and said, look, if her number one issue, that's now my number one issue. Because as Mr. Cook mentioned a little bit ago, you work as a team, or at least you try to as much as you possibly can, or you're not going to be successful. It's much better to have three voices all saying the same, or singing the same song than it is not. And trust me, there are plenty of districts around the state where there are three different songs being sung by the three different legislators that represent their districts, and then at the end of the day, nothing gets accomplished. But we're looking at that very, very heavily. And I think that there's a lot of things. A lot of the infrastructure, the one-time dollars for transportation, I don't have any reason to believe that won't stay or stick. You've got a solid group of people that are going to make sure that it does. In Pinal County, one of the best things of having probably the most road miles of state highways of any county in the state is that you have an ability to send people to the state legislature that are going to recognize that there are a lot of transportation projects. I'm looking at Chip. I mean, Mayor, how long has that been needed along 60 there? Just AJ, Gold Canyon, that whole area has been horrible for quite a long time. So hopefully we'll be able to get that taken care of. I don't know anybody that doesn't believe that that's not a need. But working together is how we do this, and having money. And you have to work together to actually have a bank account in which to do that stuff too. So look forward to continuing the job on that.
Representative Cook, you traveled how long to get here this morning?
Hour and 45 minutes.
Hour and 45 minutes, and I know that up in the area where you live is mainly ranching and very, very rural. But kudos to you, Representative, that you've always been that voice we can also talk to regarding Riggs Road overpass, widening 347, other Pinal County roads that serve our communities. I thank you for that. You've always been a voice that, as supervisor, I could reach out to, and you've always showed that courage and willing to work for us. So just thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. I do want to comment on what TJ just said, is that, remember how I talked about in ranchers, we have a thought process maybe a little different than other people? We were sitting in TJ's office, right? Me and Frank were, with Governor Lewis, and I'm going to give Governor Lewis credit. We were talking about a different completely issue. And once we got that solved and resolved, because we represented them, I looked at Governor Lewis in TJ's office and I said, we have to get I-10 widened. TJ's been working on it. He takes care of this half, I take care of that half. But it was the hang up at the bridge. The bridge had to have the environmental studies done. They had to run it through their process at Gila River. They had to do their work to widen the bridge before I-10 could be widened at all. And he looked at his staff and says, you know what, they're right, it's time. That happened in TJ's office with me and Frank and Governor Lewis and their leadership. So that's the first step. So that gets us to where we can do that. What I want to see continue in Pinal County is not for us to get behind the 8 ball, let's say. TJ mentioned all the people in Santan Valley where he played golf, and then all of a sudden these are houses there. That's why we have been fighting. They've been spending 19 years to do the study from Interstate 10 to 60 on the north-south corridor. 19 years ADOT did. So once we finally got all those public meetings and stuff done, that's why we have been championing to keep the funding going. What did TJ say? You don't hire a bunch of staff just for one-time money. So we want to make sure that the money goes into these projects as they're needed, okay? So by purchasing the state land from where the 24 is going to end at Ironwood on out through Highway 60, you think about, we're going to head into an economic downturn. And we've seen it in Pinal County and throughout Arizona, right? I don't want that to get hung up in some developer that gives an easement for the state route 24, and then if something goes debunked, then that's tied up in litigation. Let's just go ahead, get the money together, purchase the entire easement, so the state can continue working on that state highway no matter what the economy has done. So as long as we have that money in the bank, economy goes down, because workers are hard to find right now in these fields. If it doesn't happen right now and we have that money put away because of good policies we've done, then when the economy goes down, there will be that work, those jobs, those infrastructure, big ticket items that really is going to pull our state back through a recession. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Carter, did you want to weigh in on any of the transportation, anything that's necessarily important that you've been working on?
I think that my colleagues up here have mostly mentioned everything. I think most of us are, on the balance, happy with what's going on. The budget obviously isn't finalized yet, but the draft that we're seeing does include the funding, as you mentioned, for State Route 24. Obviously, I-10 widening was a difficult one because the federal match required a submission last month. And normally that would be part of the budget negotiations, but we made sure that that went up as a separate money bill, as a separate budget bill ahead of time so we could qualify. I believe it's $300 million that the feds are putting in. So we're really happy with that because, of course, Senator Shope, Mr. Cook, and God rest his soul, Frank Pratt have been working on that for a long, long time. I mean, so we're really happy with that in particular, I think. But State Route 24, North-South Corridors, Tier 2 study is in there, a number of other things you already mentioned, and I think if I can speak for myself and probably the others, I think we're mostly happy with what's in there.
Okay, great. Well, here's the representative, your question. In this post-COVID era, what has the legislature done to establish a framework that will minimize future disruptions to the economy and keep our schools open?
Sure, the coronavirus was really unprecedented, and I think as it unfolded, the concern of elected officials was in the right place. It was about protecting the people. And as it unfolded, I think what we realized is there's a number of policy areas that we really haven't addressed before. So there have been a number of coronavirus-related bills that have passed this year. One of them was to ensure that if someone's in a medical facility, that sort of thing, that they can still have some visitations, particularly from clergy and stuff. But I think in particular, one of the, I guess I'll call it a win for the policy, is that we did pass a bill, and interestingly, the governor signed it, that would require the legislature to weigh in on emergency declarations and the governor's emergency powers after a specific period of days. I think that's important. That's the normal American thing, is to balance powers that way. It preserves the governor's ability to take immediate action on something that's important like that, but also preserves the review, as it were, of the citizen-elected legislature to take a look at that. So I think that was a good policy change. There are a number of other things that have been passed too.
Okay, panelists, did anybody else want to weigh in on that particular post-COVID plans?
Well, I just would say that I think what we saw, obviously, I think Representative Carter mentioned that it was unprecedented. I mean, there's a playbook in Florida, if you're governor of Florida, for how to deal with a hurricane. There's a playbook in California if there's an earthquake, what a governor is supposed to do, or a government is supposed to do in the event of a cataclysmic earthquake. You know, coronavirus, any other virus, I mean, there's not, unless you're a fan of movies, there's not really a playbook per se. And I think that you saw a lot of folks feeling it out. I think as far as where we go for education specifically, you're seeing it right in front of me here with the live stream. I think a lot of folks did what they could to get by. I do believe that it's so important to keep our kids in a classroom so they can be learning. I am worried about the learning loss that has occurred over the last couple of years. I think we all should be, especially if you have a business that is reliant on individuals who possess a certification that they're going to need to obtain in order to work for you. Everybody should be concerned. And what are we doing to catch that cohort up is probably one of the biggest things I'll be looking at as we go into the next session to make sure that those students are not completely lost as they go forward. So we need to buckle down on what that's going to look like. I know the governor has set up his summer program, which I think is a great first step. There's going to need to be probably a lot of things like that as we go forward for that cohort of students. And if it's something that works for that cohort of students, it's something that could be implemented for all students going forward as well. So if it's something that you can take a crisis like this, and there are good policies and good ideas that you can take a crisis and turn positives into, and especially in education. Hopefully that's the direction that we go.
Senator Shope, this question is for you. Governor Ducey wants to create a Arizona Water Authority with a $1 billion budget charged with finding new sources of water over the next 3 years. As currently written, rural counties such as Pinal County won't be represented on the authority. Do you feel rural counties will be able to compete with Maricopa and Pima counties for these limited water resources, maintain our ranching and ag industries, and keep up with the growing population?
Well, I think that there's several variations that are out there right now. I think the one agreement that we all have is that, and I say all, I probably shouldn't be as lax with my language there, but the one place that seems to have consensus is the dollar amount over that period of time, the $1 billion. I think there's a lot of gray on what the actual authority looks like, how it's governed, things like that. I don't even know that the Senate and the House are in agreement at this point on where that all is. I do know that our latest draft, as far as the Senate draft, Pinal County is represented very well on that. And I think that is the direction it's going. I also will say, as kind of a side note that maybe is somewhat water related, but also not, I think it's going to be increasingly difficult to continue to characterize Pinal County as a rural county going forward. for a lot of these things. So we have, I don't want to say hidden behind the fact that we're not Maricopa and Pima County for quite a long time for different things, especially budget related. So that way we don't have to take the same hit that Maricopa and Pima County do oftentimes. But it is becoming increasingly difficult with every announcement that is made of a new entity that employs so many people moving into Pinal County, or the fast growth that is occurring. So I think that we have to prepare ourselves for a period of time going forward that some of the luxuries that we've enjoyed from a budgeting perspective and a policy perspective, where you may have some policies that say only for counties above the population of X, Y, Z, this pertains to, and other counties not. That time may be coming to an end sooner than we'd like. But in this case, I do think that I know that we will be represented. I don't believe that, I don't think I'm going to vote for anything that doesn't have representation for Pinal on there. However, we are not, I think, close to final language on that.
Good, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. It's great to hear that Pinal County and rural counties are going to be represented. Representative Cook?
Yeah, Tony, I want to just add, TJ did a marvelous job back to the education thing. Giving a shout out, I want to give it again for the governor's summer program. That's leadership, and what you think of him, I like him. But that is leadership right there. The scores are so down low. Kids need to be in schools. We're into a problem with what happened with COVID and these kids' education. The governor's actually doing something about it. Now people just need to get out there, take advantage of that program in the summer, get those kids back up there, because we see the effects today of what that is. So remember we talked about the water bill, and the policy needs to be fleshed out. We talked about the Constitution. Let's back up a little bit, because TJ reminded me of this. So when they first rolled this thing out, in the Senate, there are those people that say, we're not going to grow government. We're not going to create another agency. We would all agree we don't want any more regulatory authority, because you see what this thing is kind of not modeled off of, but in California, lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, where water owners have fought these people, they've gone broke, they've just drug it out. It is a mess, and we don't want to be like that. So no regulatory authority. So then when it comes up to where we're going to use $1 billion, the question that we have is, for what? For what? What are you going to use with the money? That's the first question we should ask. If we're going to do this, what are we going to use the money? Well, we're going to use it to back up the bonds. Okay, there's another question. So remember how ranchers think? Should we, as the legislature, should we put a limit on the bonding capacity for the state of Arizona? Are you, as the taxpayers, on the hook for these bonds? These are all questions that have to be flushed out in good policy. So the answer is no. The Arizona taxpayer would not be on the hook for the bonds. I think where I'm at personally is that we don't put a limit on the bonding capacity, because we don't know what those bonds would be sold for and for what projects to bring new water to the state of Arizona. And so those are the things. The Senate, they want to use already existing programs like WIPA and things like that are already there, park the money over there, and have them do that instead of creating a whole new quasi-government agency to do business on behalf of the state. So the bonding was a huge hurdle to get over, of how much, are we on the hook, whatever. And the last thing I'll say is this. One of the questions I brought up was, we're going to put $1 billion over there. I know how the legislature works down there. Does the legislature, do we have the ability to sweep those funds if we want? Think about that. We're going to put $400 million over there into an account. Can the legislature sweep those funds? Okay, that's how the language that got into the draft was, because I think, well, if you're going to bond, does it have to go to the voters? Because my local school board, if they want to bond, they got to go to the voters, right? Those are all questions that are getting flushed out now. So now that's why it says it takes 2/3 of the vote at the legislature to sweep those funds. Well, you're going to hear it first. 31 can change that 2/3 number, can't they, TJ? Right. So, thank you.
Representative Martinez.
Real quick, I was texted that the live stream went down momentarily. Are we back up?
Yeah.
Okay,
Still
good.
recording.
Awesome.
Representative Martinez, there's been in your district a tremendous amount of growth and jobs, and even in your new district now, you've got a tremendous amount of job growth, new manufacturing. The question is, Central Arizona College, our friends here, is working hard with local industries to increase the supply of trained technical workers to meet those resource demands of these local industries. What ideas should we be pursuing to increase the supply of technical workers for our growing economy?
Well, first of all, I did go to CAC, so back in the day. So I've been here. It's changed for a while since I've been here. As a new legislator, I know what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And I always talk about how I go to the office, but it's not really my office. When I sit at that seat, it's not my seat. It's Pinal County seat. I'm there representing you. My little boy played football for Coolidge, and watching him, he was a running back, very successful running back. He also did the corner for defense. He would go to the coach. Coach would tell him what to do. And my little boy would say, I'm going to go get that first down. I'm going to go get you 20 yards. And he loved Larry Delbridge. I'm going to go, and if I'm lucky enough, I'm going to get that touchdown. And the coach, he would go over, he would talk to the coach, and then he would execute. That's what my little boy's job was, execute. I am the running back. You are the coach. This is not the Teresa Martinez show, and this is not going to be the Teresa Martinez and TJ show when we become seatmates, and prepare yourself, TJ. So, this is going to be about what I need to execute for you, whether it be education, roads, water. What do you think? What is it that you need me to execute? I know you appreciate my efforts, but you have me there for results. Do you not? So the question really becomes, what needs to happen? Do you want me to decide? I will, if you need me to. But I'd rather much work in a partnership with CAC and ask CAC, what is it that we can do together so that we can create good policy, so that the state isn't overstepping your bounds, but you still have the support from the state of Arizona. And ironically enough, and Mark has been wonderful, Mark Barnes, with the Superintendent's Association, I've already started having stakeholder meetings with some of the superintendents throughout my district. And I continue to do that. What I'm going to also say here and pledge to you, all of you, live stream and in person, I'm going to start having stakeholder meetings as soon as session is done on water, on roads, on schools, and probably healthcare. And that's what we're going to start to do. That way, in November, when we can start dropping bills, we have a game plan. David is right about all these questions about, is it legal? Is it something we can do? Have we thought about the end? Have we thought about the situation with the end in mind? Have we thought about how we move from A to Z? We need to do that together. I don't want to do this and represent Pinal County without actually talking and communicating and partnering up with Pinal County. I've already met with the mayor and Maricopa and Casa Grande and Eloy. I've talked on the phone to John Thompson. We need to do this together, and that's one of the things. So really, what does CAC have in mind would be my question about.
Very good. Regarding increasing the supply of workers for the growing economy, any other panelists wish to comment on it?
We funded STEM, remind them those science projects, and then we'll volunteer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things, I was joking earlier, and now I can't remember who I was joking around with, but the easiest and most painful budget I ever voted for, and the easiest one to get out of there for, was the one where we had a huge budget deficit because we had no money. There wasn't any choices to be had. It was just, you just get in and get out. But we were able to stave STEM here at Central Arizona College, and I remember that's something that then Representative Pratt and I worked very hard to do. And that was, you need to get to 31. Well, we can't afford to let the STEM program be eliminated in Pinal County, and that's how you get to 30. You have 29 right now. This is how you get to 31. We did that. We need to continue funding that, obviously. We need to, make sure that CAC is in a position, and we talk to Dr. Elliott often, but we also need to make sure, and she does a great job. I wish other college presidents around the state did as good of a job in talking to the business leaders and the other entities that exist within their footprint about what they need and what they need the college to be focused on as happens here. We had the governor here, and I see Juan Ciscomani, the governor of Southern Arizona director. We had just a couple buildings down for that robotics program that's helping Lucid, that's helping Nikola, and things like that. What was that about?
Drive 48.
Yeah, exactly. Drive 48. Those are the types of things that we need to be duplicating. And then I would even go a step further than Central Arizona College or the college system in general. And this is one of the reasons why I ran a bill this year to get our high school students exposed to a workforce to allow them to earn some high school credit while they're out. Programs like this used to exist, believe it or not. It's not it's not a new invention. We are just trying to mimic something that was very successful years ago to get kids exposed. And we have to go even further than that. We have to get kids exposed to what it's like to be in some of these job roles where not only can they be very, very successful from a financial perspective, but they can be helpful to whether it's the utilities, whether it's to the mining industry, whether it's to other entities that are going to help continue to lift this state up. We have to get these kids exposed to some of the things that unfortunately over the last few decades and I don't bemoan the push to college educate everybody. Obviously we're here at a college, I graduated from here as well. But we have to make sure that people understand that it is a good thing if you're going to go get an alternate certification to do something with your life. You're still mightily contributing to the success of this state. And some would argue, myself included, that you are even contributing more so than I am as just your run-of-the-mill political science major who, honestly, you don't use that degree at the legislature. I don't know if you know this. I should have majored in psychology, something else, hostage situations, hostage negotiation. I don't know. I should have done something else. But we've got to do a better job of exposing the kids and make it a positive. Don't, when you're driving down the street and you see the guy working for the utility working on a note box outside of a building, you don't tell your kid that, see, if you don't go to school, you will have to work outside all day. It's 115 out there. That's BS. Make sure that your kid knows that those people are powering the state. They're actually making sure that the internet is working in a place like this, in another business, to actually do everything that we love to do here. So we, as a collective, have a responsibility to make sure that our young people know that those are fields that they should consider.
Thank you, Senator Shope. Representative Carter. Here comes the fastball. Earlier in the session, for the purpose of increasing the supply of housing, House Bill 2674, there was an effort by the legislature to restrict or take away cities and towns' ability to zone for different uses. Why would the state want to take away the ability of local communities to manage their growth? Now that died earlier in the session, or it's not moving, but I think there's a concern with a lot of the communities that it'll come back again. Please
You're
address
kind of
this.
asking the wrong person because I didn't support it. It actually was a
Well, you'll
bill.
fight it.
There was a bill that was introduced by Representative Kaiser, and I think the concern was with increasing housing supply. I was not in favor of the bill, and it came before Commerce and voted no. But I think that local control is paramount. And where I live, which is Santan Valley, we are not incorporated, and so if we do want to have something come in there, we go before the Planning and Zoning Board at the county level, which is in Florence. And I've been to the Planning and Zoning Board for various reasons over the 12 years I've lived there. And of course there are representatives from Oracle and Casa Grande and a number of wonderful places, but who aren't necessarily local to where I live. So without sort of entering the incorporation debate, because We can have that debate another time. My concern was for the process, the legal process of enabling incorporation, precisely for that reason, because if Santan Valley, for example, was its own town or city, the zoning decisions would be made much more locally. So my point of view is that the local decision is certainly better than creating a statewide, how should I say this? It's better than making the legislature the statewide planning and zoning board. Because honestly, I really don't want to have to opine and decide on every zoning project statewide because we've usurped that role. But in terms of the Santan Valley Incorporation, the process formerly had required an affirmative notice to declarant communities and others, HOAs and things. And there's nothing wrong with notice, it's a good thing, and there's nothing wrong with landowners being able to opt in or out. The problem was that there's no statewide repository of HOAs or of home builders, or there's no, in other words, sort of legal framework. Although in theory, you could try to contact each one of those entities, the practicality of it was set such a high bar. If you went out and you sent a letter to every single HOA in, say, the city of Casa Grande, and then proceeded with your effort, another one might pop up, and then you'd be left open to a legal challenge. And like Representative Cook said, we don't want to be in legal challenges. That just wastes time and money across the board, that you didn't notify one of them. So we did get a bill passed and signed. It was also passed unanimously out of the House, which is nice. But not to change the process too much, really. Because like I say, the notice is fine, and the underlying land rights are fine. But what we did is we made it so that instead of would-be incorporators having to go out affirmatively and tell every HOA or home builder, hey, we're going to do this effort, you have to get it on the County Board of Supervisors agenda 6 months prior, so that there's public notice, and then they can intervene and drop out of it if they want to or whatever. So it just made the process a lot more easy, I think, for those who want to do it. And that would encourage, of course, local planning and zoning, which really is where it should be. At least that's my view. But will that bill come back? I don't know. I'm assuming that if it does, it would come back in a different form because, in my view, it failed spectacularly. So that, I won't speak for everybody, but that's what I would think.
Thank you, Representative. I'm going to ask Senator Shope this last question, and then we'll go to the audience for a couple questions. So be thinking about your question. Senator Shope, it appears that the lawmakers may be faced with the possibility of waiving the constitutional limit on K-12 spending, which is known as the aggregate expenditure limit. If the limit isn't waived, school districts statewide say they may be faced with layoffs. What will be done to ensure our schools do not have to face this dilemma?
Well, we waived it this year already. We had a 2/3 vote to do so. I have no doubt that should we come to that, there would be another effort to do so. I'm supportive of eliminating it entirely, but that would require us to have a longer discussion on that and some give and take as well. So I don't know that anything is immediate at this point in time. We will have some runway on that to make a decision, but I think that it's definitely something that we will discuss and go forward on.
Can I have a comment on that?
Okay, we have a
Oh
comment
yeah,
with
community colleges also have a similar thing. We have had efforts to do something there, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that.
Okay, Representative Martinez.
So as you know, I voted to waive the aggregate spending limit because mainly I went to Maricopa High School, and Dr. Teresa told me that if it wasn't waived, that just the Maricopa County, Maricopa, the town of, alone would lose over 900 people. 900 people if that wasn't waived. So it was not a great vote. We needed a majority. One of the things I did immediately after was I started stakeholder meetings with all the superintendents. I think I just have 2 more left so that we can start talking about how we as a community go through the next session. I've already started those stakeholder meetings, and I've already given some of the superintendents their homework assignment, as to bringing me ideas and bills that we can work on together. This is an important piece, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to go into next session, come around February, and have those same 900 people in Maricopa High School worried about losing their jobs. It's not fair. It's not fair to the people who work in the cafeteria. It's not fair to the teachers, to the student aides. And honestly, we knew we were going to pass it. We knew we were. It became some sort of political maneuvering, which I don't think helped anybody in the community. And that's why we have to have these stakeholder meetings after session is done, so that when the new session comes in, we have a game plan, and we're not sitting around in February wondering, wringing our hands whether or not we're going to have to vote on this exact same bill again. And so if anybody in there, in the audience or online watching, wants to help me with these stakeholder meetings, I welcome your voices.
Thank you very much, Representative. We have a few minutes for a couple questions, maybe 3 at the most. Let's go to Mr. McCain.
Good morning.
This is Mike.
Partnership. My name's Bill.
Be careful.
I would like to thank Pinal Partnership for the forward thinking and our legislature. I came here, I was concerned, but now I feel much better after the important thing I've heard here is your listening and collaboration is going to save our future. And not only in Pinal Partnership, I think we need in the world to be able to see that there is a way out of here. And the way we do it is through education. But we got to listen first. And I thank you for this.
Thank you, Barry. We had a question over here.
Yeah.
Any others, raise your hand, please. Yeah.
Well, my question too, we've got all of our leaders right here, so I got a question. Mr. Cook, when you came down here, you probably come down from Florence Junction right down to Arizona Farm Road and cut across. I better put a closer right on that. Now, you're gonna try to do that at 4:30 in the morning and try to get on that road. And how many wrecks have we had right there on that road? And every time I talk to supervisors, the answer is, they'll come back to you and say, it's a state problem. I'm asking you, isn't there some way you put a light and make it safer? There's been a lot of people killed right at that spot.
Thank you, and probably the most dangerous intersection is on the 347 going to Maricopa. So that's why forward thinking, I go back to the 19 years for the north-south corridor study. Last year's budget, we got the Tier 2 study done, which is from Hunt Highway to US 60. We also got ADOT to say hands off, give the money to Pinal County so they can expedite that, and all that's going to change right through that area. It's going to be much, much better in the future. So that's what's going to happen. It's going to get changed. I want the speed limit raised on Ironwood Road too, by the way, so just one of those things. I hope that answers your question. It's in the works. Now County's going to be able to do the work themselves, which will be at a much faster pace with the people that work for this county government than what we see in ADOT. 19 years is a little too long.
Because you know there's about, on that road right there, about one a month, they'll have somebody killed.
Okay, Mayor McFarland.
Good morning, and thank you all for everything you've done, especially on the I-10 vote. I really appreciated that. That's obviously been one of my major focuses for the last 6 years, so thank you. The question I have is that the PRTA currently has collected $87.8 million, and it's sitting in a bank account. The Supreme Court has ruled against the tax, as has already been discussed. So what are we going to do, and how can we try to make sure that that $87.8 million stays in Pinal County?
You don't mind, I guess I'll start with that one. I was actually really surprised that they ruled against us, particularly because they had allowed us to collect it, which normally would suggest that they were sympathetic to our side. I understand it was a 4-3 decision, so I guess it was close. Now when I heard that, I was very disappointed, but I went to talk to Kent Volkmer right away, because one of the other representatives, Representative Bullock, told me that there was a similar issue that had transpired in a West Valley city, and the legislature was able to pass a bill authorizing the spending of the money, or authorizing the tax, I guess. Although we looked into that with Mr. Volkmer, and what we found is that it's not an option in our case, because the legal theory that the case rests on is that that tax is illegal. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that's what the Supreme Court ruled, right? So if the tax was illegal, then it was illegally collected, and an illegally collected tax is supposed to be refunded to the payers of the tax. The problem is that the literal payers of the tax are the retailers who collected it, think Walmart, Home Depot, and whatever, but they're not really the payers of the tax. You're the payer, I'm the payer. I've been paying that tax for 3-4 years, however long it was. Right, all of us. And we're not gonna get a check back from the Department of Revenue, because they'll never know how much you've purchased in 4 years from every retailer in the county. So it'll amount to a windfall to the retailers if it's repaid that way. It's really a conundrum, it really is. Legally, we don't see a path forward for returning the money. What we do have is the ability to reauthorize the tax going forward. I think that'll happen. But what do we do with the 80 million? And I remember talking to Mr. Volkmer, and one of the ideas that was floated was, can we ask the major retailers to relinquish it to the county? And that's kind of a happy thought, but I don't think that that's really necessarily going to fly with them. So it's a real problem. That's the truth. I don't know if somebody else wants to weigh in on that, but that's at the moment the sort of the analysis that I see of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair. I think the best thing in this room right now, the $87 million is going to be decided by somebody probably not in this room. The best thing that people in this room right now can do is, if you're supportive, as I was a handful of years ago, support the effort going forward. We can go ahead and talk till we're blue in the face about people who paid a tax. Well, the people who paid the tax are going to get their money back, and that's the retail. I've been in retail my entire life, and my family's been in retail for 70 years. I mean, that's how it works in this state. It's a transaction privilege tax, not a sales tax. The retailer pays it, and in some months they pay it in advance, not knowing what their actual retail sales are going to be. They pay an estimated tax. I don't think that's coming back anywhere. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge, I guess, whenever a decision's handed. I had talked to Senator Leach. I know that he had some ideas and was working with the Department of Revenue on alternative uses for the $87 million that maybe could have some fruition, but that's not going to be decided today. Probably not going to be decided by the time November's ballots are out either. So, like I said, the thing to do is if you're supportive, as I think most of us in this room are, get behind the effort, and let's make sure we do it again.
Well, for our newest representatives, Representative Martinez and Carter, we've got the famed personalized Pinal Partnership Cup that we give to you, and for our other Senator Shope and Representative Cook, we've got the Pinal Partnership laser pen, so be very careful you don't put your eye out.
Don't point them at an aircraft that's now illegal.
That's really nice.
Does Representative Cook have something else to add?
We need to touch on one more thing real quick.
Okay.
We've talked about education. We need to educate kids and all that stuff. We've talked about jobs, infrastructure, all that stuff. The last thing before we leave here today, I want to talk just a little bit about healthcare. And I want to give you some good news about where Pinal County is at today as it's growing. Now, I want to start with 2 years ago, Frank, TJ, and I were over in the town of Kearney, and those people need health care in that Copper Corridor area. So Copper Valley Community Hospital, located in Glow, what they do? They build a clinic in Superior. Well, we love that. But still, you've got that entire Copper Corridor going all the way to Winkleman, and those communities, Kearney being the largest one there, still needs health care. So we got Copper Valley Community Hospital, and I'm not taking credit for me today, but we're the ones that do the pushing and the heavy lifting that needs to be done at the time it needs to be done. that Brownsfield grant, working with the Department of Environmental Quality, we got that done with and thank you to the EPA that gave us the money, but demolished that. And if you follow me on social media, you saw that big track over there loading the dump trucks. Beautiful site, beautiful location, all that stuff. Cobra Valley's going to build now a brand new medical facility in Kearney. That's Pinal County. Now, moving on, you've got exceptional health care that Ms. Martinez and us and TJ all went over to. Think about the city of Maricopa, the population there. How many babies have been born there? None. They didn't have a hospital. Now they have an emergency room hospital with 6 beds that already is moving on a fast track for an expansion for that hospital there in the city of Maricopa, which they see, I think on average, 53 patients a day. I've heard the stories of the lives they've already saved there and the Auction community. And last thing is Casa Grande. When you talk about I-10 widening, yes, I hear a lot from you. Thank you very much. Okay, but one of the things in what TJ just said up here a little earlier ago, which is so true, we hide Pinal County and we fight and we say we're rural and all that. But really, those days are coming. So that's how the hospital in Casa Grande got brought up into the Phoenix urban area, right? So they're not available to go out and get those funds and stuff as other rural hospitals were.
Well,
We're working on that.
we're working on that. That was one of my budget requests.
That's it.
I get it.
That was one of my budget
So
requests.
that's where we, please turn that off.
That's where we do that, but healthcare is really moving in a large positive direction for the citizens of this county, and I just want you to know that these two new people up here, along with us and all that stuff, we don't lose sight of that, because what do you need to make your community? First of all, I'm going to say church, okay? But what you also need is you need good schools and good health care, and I don't think that TJ and us will ever lose sight of that, so thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you to our entire panelists. Give them a big applause. I want to thank our breakfast sponsor, Central Arizona College, for this facility and for welcoming us here. And again, I remind you, no breakfast in July. We'll see you again in August. Have a safe and enjoyable summer. Thank you all very much. Now, if you're a board member of Pinal Partnership, we're going to be meeting right over there where Jakob is standing. And if you want to network and mingle, please go over to the side over here or outside, please, and so we can